Welcome into the Bonesville Pregame Podcast. Al Myatt, joined by Kevin Monroe. Kevin, of course, great defensive back in his playing days at East Carolina, culminating with that illustrious team in 1999. And Kevin, as his schedule permits, provides insight on the Pirate Radio Network. And this Saturday, Kevin, of course, Memphis coming into Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium, but you saw a thorough performance, at least for the start of that contest, 48-22 win over Charlotte this past week. The Pirates getting out to a 28-0 lead and getting that first win against the 49ers.
Yeah, I think the Pirates were clearly the better team leading up until the game, and I think they showed that starting from the very beginning and throughout. It was tough sledding for the 49ers, both offensively and defensively. Offensively, they came out with the game plan that they wanted to stop the run, and they actually did pretty good at that early on. They put 7 or 8 in the box on every play. And so you probably saw that JDB just said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to spread it out, throw the ball around the park. And they were playing this soft man, soft zone coverage where the corners were lining up 8 to 10 yards off the receivers. And so they just started picking them apart down the field. And you saw that, Anthony Smith was involved. I think he had like 5 or 6 catches just in the first quarter where they just kind of stood up doing little hitch routes and let him just kind of work and run down the field and try to get yards after the catch. And so they were trying to force Charlotte to pay attention to the pass and not just focus on the run. And eventually they had to. Eventually we were able to spread them out. There was a crucial fourth down, I think, where Caden ends up running a quarterback draw to pick up the first down. And that was, that had to do with the fact that we were spread out in empty set and they had to, really pay attention to the receivers because the passing game was working so good at the time. So, get up 14-0 early. Then you have this bomb touchdown, beautiful throw to Anthony Smith that falls right in and out of his hands. You can just see it live. You can see him kind of turn his head as the ball was coming in because it was such an easy catch. And he just took his eyes off of it. I'm always preaching to my sons, you catch the football with your eyes. If your eyes looking somewhere else, you're not going to catch the football. And so that happened. The very next play, they go for it on fourth down. They miss it, turn the ball over. And you're like, oh, man, that was a crucial point in the game. And literally the very next play, Tyree Brown picks it off and goes for a pick six, and they go up 21-0. So you have these turn of events where the momentum could have shifted, and the Pirate defense picked up the offense to push it to 21-0, and then from there they just kept cruising. Now it got a little bit tighter there at times. Specifically, I think in the third quarter they got within 14 maybe at one point. But the Pirates were able to stay tough defensively. Gave up some deep balls. That's been the one thing that was in my keys last week. That's been the one thing they've struggled at is the deep ball touchdown pass. And so they gave up a couple more of those to allow the 49ers to stay in it. They've got to shore that up. But outside of that, they played pretty faultless football. It was fun to watch.
Well, to Charlotte's credit and Grayson Loftus, he did find a little bit of a rhythm, and he's got some decent receivers. And they did make a bit of a run there, but when you're up 28-0, you can afford a few slip ups but to credit to Charlotte, and they did make a bit of a comeback there. Blake Harrell ran over factors that East Carolina kind of checked the boxes in the Charlotte game, and he talked about performance in the red zone, the rushing game, penalties, explosive plays on down the line. And it really was a dominant performance because East Carolina had the advantage in all of the categories that he mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive to watch what they were able to do, their ability to convert on third and fourth down, their ability to stop teams from converting on third and fourth down. They were one of the better teams in the country getting off the field on third down. They're one of the better teams in the country in terms of scoring efficiency defense. They're putting up a ton of points each game. And so, yeah, as you start to look at the different things the Pirates were able to do in that game, they did turn the ball over, I think once, but they were able to be smart with the football. They were able to attack. They were getting after Loftus, who wasn't a very agile quarterback. Maybe one of the weaker spots in the game was they gave up a couple, 2 to 3 sacks to Charlotte, and Charlotte only had 9 sacks all year long, and so that wasn't a strength of theirs. But I think a couple of times Caden got where his drops were too short, and his first read he didn't like it, and so he was pumping and looking for somebody else, and he ended up getting sacked. That happened a couple of times. I think that's more of an overconfidence thing. When you're playing so well against a team, you just kind of get back there and you get into this lull, like, oh, I got this, no big deal. And all of a sudden you get sacked. And that's unfortunate because it makes the offensive line look bad when it was probably a little bit more on Caden. Get to drop a little bit deeper, get the ball out quicker, that kind of thing. But yeah, I can't fault anything that Coach Harrell said because they ticked all the boxes. They were able to run the football efficiently. They had over 4 yards to carry. Again, I think that's like the 3rd straight game. The passing game was efficient. I think Caden only completed 63% of his passes. That's still very, very good. I say only, but that's still very, very good. And they had, a good bit of yards passing and some touchdown receptions. So run game did well. Passing game did well. And then defensively, Charlotte really struggled to stay really just in the red zone. It was tough for them to move the football. They couldn't run it at all. They did, the quarterback did end up, I think, with almost 280 yards passing, and it was because of a couple of deep balls that he was able to complete. But outside of that, I agree with you. No penalties, but the one penalty for the spike with all the celebrations, so that was cool. It was a pretty clean game by the Pirates.
Blake Harrell liked the fact that they had fewer penalties. That was one of the factors that he mentioned in his breakdown on the game. And he said he told his team Monday morning, he said, if we get another 28-0 lead, bring me the ball and I'll spike it and I'll get the penalty. And so, a coach like that, the players like to play for a coach who relates to them in that manner. And I don't think there's any problem with him establishing discipline, but he does have that ability to kind of to joke along at the same time.
That's exactly right. Blake Harrell is a player's coach, but he will also get on their butts. Like he's a coach that will, tell you when you're doing wrong, get you to fix it, and then tell you he loves you. So he's that kind of guy. And I think that those kind of coaches, they're successful, and the players will fight for them when things get tough. I was watching the Ole Miss game, I think a week or so ago, and Ole Miss got a turnover. It was a night game. It was a crazy environment. They were at home. It was great. Lane Kiffin grabs a kid that came up with a turnover. He's like shaking him. He's so excited. He smacks him on the helmet, and then he goes and tells him, go celebrate with the recruits. And so he sends the whole team down, and they're all in front of the recruits that are there at the game celebrating and going crazy. And that kind of stuff matters. I mean, it's going to get the recruits to want to come to your team, and it's also going to let your teammates know, let your team know that you care about them and you want them to have fun. And so the whole comment about spiking the ball, I mean, I completely get it because it's all marketing. It's all about letting these guys have fun, but it's also letting the next generation coming up know that you're going to have fun being a Pirate if you come here.
East Carolina outrushing the 49ers, I think 183-40. And East Carolina was driving at the end of that game. And I know there were some people that probably had money on the betting line, given 28.5, and the margin is 26. And they would have liked to have seen a field goal or a score there at the end. But that's one of the risks in the world of legalized wagering that we live in nowadays. And so Blake Harrell said, he didn't want to he would have liked to have scored in a way there at the end, but he said you do things like that and the football gods eventually come back to haunt you. So he refrained, and the backup quarterback, Chasten Dutta, took a knee to close it out on Saturday there. I
have a feeling, Al, that if Biff Poggi had been over the other side coaching, he probably would have scored that last touchdown.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine not. And then you've got the situation. It was homecoming. It was Hall of Fame day, letter winners day. One of your teammates, David Garrard, was back on hand. Several players who have been up in the NFL, Jaquan McMillan, Julius Wood, on the sideline for East Carolina, and Siobhan Ravel as well. And just a great day for the Pirates. And Coach Harrell said it got started with an event in Greenville on Friday. And he spoke at that, and then the Pirate walk before the game, and it was just tremendous weather, great day to tailgate, great day to watch East Carolina play some good football.
It was awesome. Al, I mean, how often is it 75 degrees and sunny on a November Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you know, it's the second week in November, and it's a 75 degrees. It was just a beautiful day, a God-made day, and to have Dwayne Harris and Justin Hardy and Shane Carden go into the Hall of Fame. You know, I said it before. I don't think a group of that highly accomplished for football players has ever gone in at the same time. We've had, you know, maybe had some bigger Hall of Fame guys go in, but those three combined was maybe the best class we've ever had. And I was truly in awe to watch those guys go in. I didn't get a chance to see Shane before the game, but I saw Justin and Dwayne and gave them both hugs and like just told them how appreciative I was of their careers and thankful that they were Pirates and proud of them. So that was really cool. But I also got to see, like you said, Dave and David's son recently got an offer from East Carolina as offensive lineman. And so hopefully we'll see him in the future. So I was able to speak to him. I saw one of the Hart twins, Jermaine Smith. I saw a few guys around. I didn't get a chance to see Jaquan McMillan. I didn't know he was there, but I saw quite a few guys, and that's what homecoming's all about. Just, you know, celebrating with your ex-teammates and your buddies. Josh Hawkins was down there. So it was a good day. I was really excited about the way we played, but also the fact that it all culminated in that Hall of Fame letter winners weekend, and it was fun to see.
Another special occasion coming up this Saturday is Senior Day. It's going to be the last home game of the season for the Pirates, and not an especially prolific senior class, but certainly some outstanding standouts. You mentioned, and I like what you said on the radio, that the number one recruiting target for next year needs to be Caton Hauser, because he is the straw that stirs that offensive drink for the Pirates, and a big factor in looking forward to next year is going to be keeping him on the roster. But you know, anytime that you're a senior, whether you transferred in this year or whether you've been here 5 years, you know, it is a special day, and that recognition is very well deserved.
No, and forgive me, Alex, I haven't had a chance to look at the list of seniors yet, so I don't know who all. I think Marlon Gunn is definitely one of them, and he'll definitely be missed. You know, I think it's fun to have a day where you can celebrate those guys, because especially in this day and age, anybody that's been there since freshman year needs to be lauded as a hero, because you don't see it very often anymore for someone to go and stay 4 or 5 years at a university with all the options around the country to go elsewhere. So it'll be a sad but exciting day to be able to celebrate those folks, and just thankful to have some of them to spend their careers here playing football. And even the ones that, like you said, that transferred in, that have spent their last couple here, that have become Pirates, will always be Pirates. You know, I'll always remember my senior day, and it was, you know, against NC State, the biggest crowd ever in Dowdy-Ficklen history at the time, with the 2 end zone seats brought in, the aluminum seats brought in, and we played Jamie Barnett. And it was the game that Steve Logan became the winningest coach in East Carolina history. So it was a fond memory for me, getting that win and getting to 9 wins on the season, which was another milestone, because I don't think the Pirates had 9 regular season wins outside of the Peach Bowl in some time. So that was a big deal back then as well. So yeah, these players will remember this senior day forever, like I'm remembering mine. And hopefully we get another nice sunny day that the fans can come out and enjoy it. I think I've heard more marketing, $12 upper deck seats, and I think $25 lower bowl seats in some sections. So they're trying to get as many Pirate fans in the seats as possible.
You know, one thing about a 28-0 lead in the first quarter, it takes some of the suspense out of the game, and I think that was reflected by the crowd there in the second half. The stadium looked pretty empty. But, you know, talking about the game with Charlotte, and certainly that's going to be an in-state rivalry. I think it's going to only grow in terms of the anticipation of that matchup each year, and particularly because it's going to be in the conference. And I can see down the road where that game is going to have potentially some significance in the conference race. And it did for East Carolina on Saturday
Yeah.
because they are one of numerous teams that have just one league loss at this point.
Yeah, and someone asked me before the game, who is, I think it's my youngest son asked me, who is East Carolina's biggest rival? And honestly, I couldn't think. I mean, if you asked me when I was playing, it was Southern Miss. I mean, that was our nemesis. That's who we played tough games against. That we beat them some early to mid '90s, and they started beating us in the mid to late '90s, and that was kind of our back and forth game. I think Pirate fans today would probably say NC State. We don't play them every year, but we play them quite a bit, and we love beating them. We beat them last year in the bowl game. They were able to get us by a touchdown this year. So I think that is probably what people would say. But I think Charlotte, because we're both group of 5 teams, we're on the same level playing field, whereas State's a Power 4 team. They have more money to recruit and all that nonsense. We're not on a level playing field with them. I think we compete with them. We definitely compete with them, but we're not on a level playing field. So I think the Charlotte could become that rivalry where everything's equal in the same conference, 3 hours up the road or whatever it is. And so I think that it could be that game, but you can't start calling something a rivalry until you get a win. And so the Pirates were, over and finally got a win in that series. And now it's on. Now they'll be marking that game on their calendar for next year. And so will we. So yeah, I love that this is brewing into a nice rivalry.
And you mentioned State, of course, and you played in that first game against the Wolfpack in Greenville. And I believe that win was 23-6 in favor of the Pirates. And coincidentally, the first time the teams played in Raleigh in 1970, NC State won 23-6. So each location, the same score. And be that as it may, Memphis Tigers coming in, Kevin, and Pirates have had some meaningful games with Memphis over the years. A few years back, that 4 overtime contest really stands out, and East Carolina managed to prevail in that one. But Memphis on a little bit of a disappointing slide. I'm sure they've got 2 league losses now, and it's going to be tough for them to get into that conference championship. Losing to Tulane this past Friday night at home, great win for the Green Wave. But the fact they played on Friday night gives the Tigers an extra day to prepare. And some teams are really tough after a loss.
And no, I didn't get a chance to watch the Tulane game. But didn't their quarterback get banged up? Memphis's quarterback get banged up in that game?
He did, and Coach Harrell said Monday they're preparing for 3 quarterbacks, the starter, and then the backup that came in, and even a freshman, I think, that he mentioned, A.J. Hill out of Houston County, Georgia. Mm-hmm. He's familiar with him, and he said they're getting ready for all 3 quarterbacks.
I'll never forget one of those losses that we had in 1999 was on the road at UAB. And we were far and away the better team. I mean, it might have been almost like the Charlotte ECU comparison this year. Their starting quarterback got hurt. Their backup quarterback got suspended for like grades or something. And their third string quarterback came in, and he was a shifty guy. They put in the option, and they started running the option. So we hadn't seen it. We hadn't prepared for it. And we were, it was a little bit embarrassing to lose that game. And I don't think we lost by much, but, again, a loss is a loss. And that was a tough one for us to try to win the conference that year. And so, yeah, you get a situation where Memphis loses their guy, and then you have to prepare for a couple other guys. You don't know what you're going to expect. I think the backup probably isn't to the caliber as a starter, and that's why they struggled a little bit against Tulane. And so we'll have to see how this thing pans out. But in normal circumstances, this is a Memphis offense that's putting up 37 points a game. They're right up there with the Pirates in terms of how good they are offensively, only giving up 19 per game. So they have a solid defense as well. They have struggled here late of the last couple games in terms of how well they've played, and some of that has to do with the injuries. So we'll see what we get from Memphis, and as it pertains to that. But I think Pirate fans definitely will be ready to pack the house and be up for this game because there's lots of conference championship implications. Tulane's obviously kind of in the driver's seat right now because they have wins over East Carolina and Memphis in terms of teams that are kind of near the top. But as you mentioned, there's 5 or so teams with 1 loss. So this is all going to shake out over the next 3 weeks, and we'll have to pray for some help as it pertains to Tulane and maybe a couple other teams, because we don't control our own destiny, but definitely still in the running.
North Texas is in there too. They gave Navy their first league loss, and so a lot of teams in contention to play for that conference championship. That UAB game, you mentioned it. I can't let that go without mentioning the guy that they took him off the field and thought he was in bad shape. They x-rayed him there, and his mom was in there when they were taking care of him. She had on an old jersey. They had to cut his jersey off in treating him. He put on his mom's jersey, came out there, and what he do? Intercept a pass and return a punt.
Yeah.
And East Carolina had a significant lead, but there was nobody in Legion Field to speak of that day in Birmingham. But credit the Blazers. They took advantage of their opportunities, and that player gave his team some real inspiration that day.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I actually told the story to my boys recently, and they couldn't believe it. That would never happen in this day and age, because he literally left the stadium in an ambulance, went to the hospital. As you said, they cut his jersey off. Like he was on a stabilization table, all this stuff. They kept his helmet on, like all this crazy stuff. And then he brought him back to the field and let him play. That would never happen in this day. Even if they declared the player to be okay, he would have been out the rest of that game if it were this day and age, just for precautionary measures. And that's what we would have needed, because he came back. Brooks, was it? I think it was maybe Rodriguez Brooks, maybe something like that.
Sounds about right.
Brooks. And he came back. He didn't take the punt to the house, but he returned it like 70 yards and got like knocked out of bounds at like the 5 or something. He might as well take it to the house, and he got a pick. Definitely. But yeah, he was like, he was sent from God on the way back to the field. I mean, it was insane what he was able to do. And so that was definitely a big part in that loss.
Yes. And Pirates, of course, taking on Memphis, and some uncertainty as far as who will be playing quarterback for Memphis. They've been scoring a lot of points. On the other hand, I think East Carolina is 27th in FBS in points allowed defensively, and Memphis is 26th in points scored. So Memphis offense versus ECU defense, that's going to be a pretty good matchup there.
Yeah, I think it's Lewis, the quarterback, that's going to be out. He's the one that's played the majority of the snaps. I mean, this guy was completing about 70% of his passes, had 10 touchdown passes, only 4 interceptions. So he was a really good player. So I think he's banged up. We'll see if he can play any at all. But as you mentioned, there's 2 guys backing him up. So I think that has going to play some sort of tail in the weather there, as prolific offensively as they've been. But you're right. The Pirates have found a way to keep teams out of the end zone all year long. And so, I think going into last game, they were giving up 16.8 per game. So I think they're probably still up there in the low teens or mid to low teens in terms of what they're giving up on average. And so, yeah, it's going to be the battle of those 2 giants. And then flipping on the other side, the Pirates are scoring over 30 points a game, and Memphis is only giving up 19 a game. So on both sides of the ball, you'll have a struggle there to see, what gives. Is Memphis defense going to give up some points to the Pirates? Is the Pirates defense going to give up some points to Memphis? I think we're favored. I think you mentioned that we're favored in the game in terms of what the prognosticators say on the betting lines. And I think that probably has something to do with the injury at quarterback, but also the fact that the Pirates are at home. You usually get a few points for playing at home, having that home crowd, and the Pirates have played well, really since the second half of the Tulane game. So the last 2.5, 3 games have been good games for the Pirates. And so I think everyone's seeing that, and I expect nothing less than that this week.
Blake Harrell said it's going to take everybody to be involved in this game for East Carolina to win Saturday. And he mentioned offense, defense, special teams, scout team, Pirate Nation fans, and they really got juiced up, I think, with the Pirate Walk last week. And some of the new Hall of Famers joined them. They said they didn't get to experience anything like that when they were at East Carolina. But that's become something that Blake Harrell really likes in the short term that it's been around. But, let's talk about that Bonesville tradition, Kevin. Kevin's keys to the game.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit about, how these teams stack up. And I think for the Pirates, let's start with the run game. And I talked about the success the Pirates have had since the second half of the Tulane game, leading to Tulsa and Temple and Charlotte. I think they've run the football well, and now they're running the ball at over a 4-yard clip, and averaging about 185 yards a game rushing for the season. And if you just count the last 2 or 3 games, they're probably averaging about 220, 250 in terms of the way they're running the football. So they've got to establish that run early. They're such a better offense when they can run the football. They're a more efficient offense. The run game started slow against Charlotte because Charlotte wasn't willing to give them any run game. So establish the run game early. Conversely, Memphis, they've got to stop the run game because Memphis wants to come out and establish a run, especially because they have an injury at quarterback. And so if the Pirates can go and stuff the run and make the backup or the third string guy pass the football, they're going to be in much better shape. And so run the football, stop the run. It's got to start with those 2 things. Turnovers, in games like this where you have 2 evenly matched teams, the team that turns the football over less, it's always the team that's going to come out with the victory. It just matters. It matters for field position. It matters to keep drives going. So the team that doesn't turn the football over is going to win this ball game. And then I'll throw in the kicking game. Mazzy has been unbelievable this season. 46-yarder 2 games ago, a 50-yarder, I think. Recently, he just, and it's always right down the middle. They're not even close. When he's spreading the uprights, and so he's so confident right now in what he's doing. And so he's got to continue to kick the football well, and they got to stay strong in the return game.
Well, Kevin, that's a good summary as always. And Memphis coming in Saturday, 4 p.m. kickoff, Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium, and you can hear Kevin on the Pirate Radio Network providing his insights. And Kevin, look forward to talking with you next week on the Bonesville Pregame Podcast.
I forgot last week, Al, to give you an update on the Monroe boys. Anything special happening? My youngest, Derek Monroe, we call him Butter. Butter got his first Division I offer this past weekend, and it was from East Carolina.
All right. Well, I'm glad the Pirates recognize that Monroe talent, and that's good to hear. And Green Level has finished its season, but he certainly was maybe the star on the team as a freshman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
God bless.